The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Oh, that second time this thing did me this way. It's supposed to auto unmute me. My bad. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up here on the YouTube channel, as well as if you're listening to us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please like, subscribe, rate, review. Give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Just give us 5 anyway and gift it. So on today's episode, we got a lot of fun stuff. Got a couple of special guests as usual to join in. And we're going to talk hardcore about recruiting, the last 3 commits that we pulled up on, as well as discuss some potential silent commits and hopefully some players that may come down the line. And we're going to wrap this bad boy up and talk quarterbacks. So let me bring in these guests that we have in here. We got my boy Coop joining us, and we've got Jason from Hall of Fame Media. What's going on, everybody?
I mean, I'll go first. What's up? What's up? Hopefully we got the volume going. Man, you got to think that eventually after post-COVID, we know how to unmute ourselves. And and I don't know if it's better now if you unmute yourself and say some crazy stuff, or you don't unmute yourself. And so it's like you don't win either way.
I feel attacked right now.
Well, Jason, you should. I sense that he's doing this on purpose to just, yeah. But yeah, that was on me. It's funny because the video intro automatically mutes you, but I mute myself before to make sure I don't cough or anything whenever I have it starting up, and it just didn't unmute me. So yes, second time it's happened to me, so y'all can laugh at me. I love when y'all give me crap about it. But hey, outside of that, man, we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, man. This past week was good stuff for the Sooners. 3 commits. We had your edge, and then a running back and a wide receiver. And so, we've got to jump in that. I want to get y'all's thoughts on those players making their commitments. And then we're going to talk about, of course, what it looks like coming down the line. And like I said, we're going to talk quarterbacks. And so it's going to be a fun show. So let's jump right into the main stuff, right? We got about 54 people here on the channel. Thank y'all for pulling up. We've only got like 16 likes, so go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new, subscribe. So let's talk about the first player. The week started off strong. On Tuesday, I got bored. No, I wasn't actually bored, but I did want to make a commitment. I went out and saw Xavier Robinson commit on that Tuesday night. So, Coop, when you saw that X decided that he was going to go ahead and be a Sooner, man, what was your thoughts?
X going to give it to you. Here's what I love. You still hear people talk. I mean, AD is AD, so we're not going to even go there. But like, you still talk about people when the first day that they saw P. Ryan on campus as a freshman, there's someone tells a story about how he walks out and he was like, "Oh man, whose dad is this?" And he starts talking to him and he's like, "Oh, my name's P. Ryan." And like, that is what we're going to see through Xavier Robinson. It's going to be great. I mean, I look forward to it. And sorry about the dogs. Obviously, summer break. It's better than not muting. And the front door is literally right in front of the studio's office. And so yeah, there you go. But
it's always fun.
I love the guy's feet. This is still a kid. And so he comes in and he gets on that Schmitty train and he gets Schmitty built. He's going to get refined. And he's going to be like, just running steel. And it's going to go well with who else is going to be coming on.
100%. I agree. Jason, when you saw that, man, coming down the line, we talked about it. We knew it was going to come down. What you think? What you feel?
Man, and you were saying, I kept telling people on my live stream last week how you were talking about this could be one of those guys that's one of the all-time greats. And I was like, man, that's a bold statement. That is a bold statement. But the more I've watched his film, it really does look like, I think speed wise, it doesn't jump off of the screen at you, but it's because he's so big and he loves contact, right? It just seems like he enjoys kind of waiting on the guy so he can pop him with that stiff arm or, kind of run right through him. I think that Xavier Robinson is going to be, the X going to give it to you. He's going to hit you. He's going to hit you and hit you again. And I just think the more I keep looking at the entirety of all the commits, you look at the commits from the 23 class, you look at the commits that we've got so far on this new 24 class, and they all just kind of seem to be real similar in some way. They all love the game. They seem to just love contact. And I don't know. It's just you're starting to see a real pattern with some of these guys. When you start looking at Wyatt Gilmore, that dude seems to be out of the play. And next thing you know, he's making the tackle, because the pursuit never stops. So it's, again, none of these guys, they seem to shy away from any kind of contact whatsoever, which you got to love because, finesse is probably about how I would describe Oklahoma over the last 10 years or so, but not so much coming up, I don't think.
No, and I agree with you there. We've been a pretty finesse squad over the last few years. I mean, we've had quarterbacks that basically go out, win Heisman, and just about quote unquote win games for us. And so, it's one of those where you're like, what are we going to look like if we don't have a quarterback that's a world beater? And we kind of saw that this past season. We learned very, very quickly. But the good thing about it, like you mentioned, watching X-Man, and I did say that. I said, I feel like he could potentially be a great long-term. And it's more so because of his size and his ability. And he's a lot faster than what most people think. When I saw him at the commitment, I was asking him, I was like, hey, man, how big are you now? Like, what are we looking at, man? I was like, nah, you've been working out. Because, my son goes to Carl Albert. And whenever I drop him off, I see X-Rob walk. I see them, the football team walking around. I'm just like, dude, you been in there getting some games. He's like, yeah, man, I'm trying to slim up. I'm like, okay, slim up. And then I saw an article came out and somebody posted it in my, in one of the comments on the video. They're like, yeah, he was saying that he's like maybe 215. He's trying to get down to 210, 215 playing weight. And I'm just like, wait, him?
Bro.
Like, so because all of us assume the P. Ryan / H-back type role, Dimitri Flowers is someone I heard. And I've heard a few people even mention Marcus Dupree. And that's kind of where the all-time great came in when a few people are watching him. They're like, the way he plays, you could see some Dupree out of him. And I'm like, that's a dang good point. I didn't even really think of when I didn't go that far back. More so, it was a lot of young folks don't really know who Dupree was and how much of a beast he was. But seeing him, I was like, okay, I can see that. And so when he told me that he's pushing at a 4.5 40, he's trying to trim it. Man, ain't no way he's gonna play no H-back. Ain't no way. But
it's not fair to be.
Once they beef him up,
4.5, bro. It's not fair.
Yeah, man.
Well, 3-star. I don't get that at all.
Right.
My thought is, we talk about business decisions all the time, and this dude comes running out, and you hear about this let's just call it a 4.5 flat, 220 coming around the corner, and you're a safety or like an undersized Big 12 linebacker. That ain't going to happen. We won't be in the Big 12, so let's go ahead and strike that from the record. So, but you will be. Making business decisions for corners. Like, come on. Like, are you gonna run up? You gonna run up and be like, "Yeah, I got this. Yeah. I've seen too many Derrick Henry clips on YouTube."
Right. Exactly. I'm not trying to run up and get hit by any of that by any stretch of the imagination, but straight up, man.
Too, Jay, that's the other thing about it. So, and I saw in here that Brian said Eddie George. I think that's a great comp because that long stride. It awesome. Doesn't look like he's going that fast. And next thing you know, he's running away from you.
Yeah, exactly. At 100. And he likes to run over people, which is great because I think my favorite, outside of him grabbing the dude and tossing him, my second favorite video of his is when he was running. It's the first highlight on his huddle film. And of course, I showed it in the videos. Go watch. You can go back to the videos I created on X, and you can see it. But he's running down the sideline, and then the corner is really trying to run up on him, and he's just like, no. He just mushes his face into the ground. I'm like, I just love the violence, man. Like, that's everyone he mentioned in here. So, yeah, y'all are right. Violence is what we're getting. We're going to jump into Wyatt next, but give me a second to do some greetings. David, what's good? Thank you for pulling up. Kim, what it do? Thank you so much. Mars, James, you always pulling up. We appreciate it. And yes, Hank, I always mute me, but we don't need a mute button for you at all. What's up, Matt? Thank you so much for pulling up. Seth, what it do, man? Thanks a bunch. Also, thank you for being a member. We appreciate the support to the channel. We're going to grow this bad boy. We're going to do some special stuff. But I did see somebody hit me with a question Seth did that I think we want to jump on before we jump into Wyatt is the Turnipseed resignation. I've been reading a bunch on this, and I think that that's probably a good spot to jump into real quick. What I'm seeing on it around is just, it seems like it's just a conflict of thoughts, I guess you could say. Now, it looks like that has put together a fantastic proposals around the new facilities that's going to be coming down. I think it's like a $200 to $250 million project that's coming, new facilities and everything, new athletic building. I know a lot of you have seen the video that's been floating around on this. And so it just looks like he says that he's resigning to spend more time with his family, in which,
right,
if I'm correct, his kids are in high school now, and it's getting to that point where they're about to be out the house. Totally understand that, because once they're gone, they're gone. You lose so many percentages of time with your kids once they hit about 12 to teenage years. Like, it's just, they've got other priorities. And so because of that, he may want to spend time with them. He's probably wanting to start a business. He did big stuff at Bama, big stuff at Clemson. And I could totally see him saying, do I really want to work for another AD, or would I prefer to do my own thing? That's my assessment on it. It kind of seems like he's probably going to want to try to start his own business and, probably work with the Sooner staff, but not be underneath somebody. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what my thoughts were. What we'll start with you, Jason. What was your thoughts when you saw that Turnipseed decided to bounce on your boy?
I just being honest with you, his salary being so low is what kind of, I was like, 300,000, really?
Yeah, crazy.
Assistants getting $1 million a lot of times, and it just seemed. I'm not gonna act like I know a whole lot about this because I don't, but I know that Joe C likes to do things the way he likes to do it, and you cannot have too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to building things and stuff like this. I mean, I've had businesses in construction and home theater and things like that. You get a lot of people with a lot of ideas going, and the next thing you know, you got somebody pissed off. Because it's not exactly the way they were thinking it was. And it just, to me, that salary spoke that he didn't have a whole lot of power. BV may have been calling him his right-hand man when it came to that kind of stuff. But as far as the rest of them are concerned, it doesn't seem like that's the case. And maybe he's made a lot of money over his career, but I don't know how you can keep a guy interested when there's guys that are on that staff somewhere along the way that are making quite a bit more money than that, right?
Right.
I don't know. If you're the right-hand man, I would think that that's equivalent to a coordinator, and coordinators make $1 million, man. You know what I mean? It's just weird. He's making a third of that.
And it's fair. I mean, he's chief of staff and all of that. Cool. Yeah. What jumped out to you on all of that?
I mean, I think that this isn't nothing, but it isn't that big of a deal. Again, like people are looking after last season to find out, like, why is this not going to work? Right. I've seen a lot of people with like I'm ready to be hurt again, memes and stuff like that. But I will say this, and I agree 100%. Like, you're making $300,000. There's some people have made comments about, he has a construction company and construction history. So what if there were certain things that weren't being, followed up with, or certain, unspoken thoughts? I thought this, well, we thought this. And again, so I don't know. I think everybody needs to find a new excuse. Then I got to go spend time with my family, because everybody keeps on using that, and most of the times that's not the case. It just isn't. Now sometimes it is, but when it's always, there you go. So I will say this is, Josie has a track record that is extremely, extremely long of doing the right thing, making the right moves, getting stuff in here. I believe what Brent Venables is doing is right. So that being said, I'm going to trust in the guys that I believe in, and we'll see what happens, because I feel like and Jay, I brought this up. I feel like 6 and 7 has made a lot of stuff look the way it really isn't.
No, and you're right. We talked about that. We're definitely going to dive deeper into that in a little bit, especially as we talk about more of the class. But last thing is on it to me is that, I mean, Jason, you make a good point. If he, with his background, and Kim actually posted this in here, he has a, executive management and construction, and he has a master's degree in that, and he's known for that. So maybe he's like, I'm a step back from being underneath, but I'll come in as a consultant, and y'all can still run this project on the back end, and nobody really needs to see my face in the offices. You know what I'm saying? I will hold their feet to the fire. I'll follow up on things for you all. I'll run the project, just not as your employment, and you pay me a hefty consultant fee. And to be honest, that's probably a really good way to go. That's probably a really good way to go. So kudos to him. Thank you. You've done so many things for the school in preparation to the transition to the SEC. All the facilities and stuff are done. I think we'll be fine long term with that. And so let's go back to these players. Let's look at, let me bring us this direction instead. Yeah, let's go to that banner. All right. Let's take a gander at the next guy, Wyatt Gilmore, which that came on the 28th, which was Wednesday. We thought it was coming. So y'all probably seen all the writings all over the interwebs, if you're a member of any of the sites, that there was going to be a commitment potentially on Monday. I think Brandon Drum mentioned it, and a lot of people got excited, of course. And it didn't happen. I believe this was Wyatt. I believe that was him, because then Wednesday we get it. And we knew it wasn't Xavier, because he had mentioned it wasn't Xavier. So Wyatt Gilmore, big time edge out of Minnesota. I can't believe we actually got him to come out of Minnesota. I'm gonna be 100% honest, because he had a lot of Power 5 schools going after him. Oregon, I think he had an Oregon visit lined up that he canceled. He had a couple of SEC schools wanting to go after him as well. I think that he is a long-term big piece to the team. Coop, what was your thoughts when you saw Wyatt Gilmore pull up?
Dan Cody, that's what he reminds me of. And again, between Chavis and Brent Venables, these guys out here, I mean, they're coming in. You can't have every single recruit be like a day one starter. You got to have some guys that could come in and have some tools. A guy like Grayson Holton, if you've seen his tweet, is 260 up to 290. We all didn't feel too hot about Grayson Holton, at 260 defensive tackle. Now this dude's sitting here at 290. And you put these guys under Schmitty for a season, it is going to be, it's going to be fire. So I'm excited. This guy's got a motor. He's got some violence with his hands. And again, he's used to playing up in Minnesota and cold. And if you watch Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, any of these football teams, they've got local line talent everywhere. And so he's going up against some of these guys. And so I like the Minnesota thing, just because, again, if we can keep recruiting streams coming from all over the place, that's never a bad thing.
That's true. Jason, when you saw Wyatt decide that he's going to be a Sooner because of these defensive line coaches, what jumped out to you?
I wanted to go look at him a little bit more, because I hadn't seen a ton on him, and I'm not as crazy with this recruiting stuff as some of you guys are. But I tell you, the more I watch his film, he's a bully, man. This guy loves contact. Again, this is another one. It's the same type of player that you continue, whatever position they may be at. None of these guys are shying away from any kind of contact whatsoever. But it also seems like he has a real high football IQ, which I think is really important. You know, you want some of them dogs that are just see ball, hit ball, you know, but you also want to see some of these guys that they're not going to over pursue. And that's what I kind of see a lot from with Wyatt. It seems like he's out of the play an awful lot of times. And the next thing you know, he's the one making the tackle. You know, somebody's got to cut back. He just never stops. So those are the kind of guys that you want to continue seeing. Even I've kind of looked at some of the tape whenever, you know, he plays a lot of H-back tight end and makes blocks. And it's just like he waits. Boom, he makes that hit, you know, on the block, you know, wait until he wants to make sure to make the right block, right? And so you see a lot of it's just a lot of high football IQ is the way I kind of look at it, because he seems to kind of like a point guard. You see the whole court, right? He's seeing everything in front of him, not just whatever's happening within 2 or 3 feet of him. And it's just, I think that he's a big kid, man, big old kid. And but he moves smooth. Again, it just doesn't look like he's running that fast, but he's definitely pursuing at all times. And it seems like he just makes a lot of plays. That edge rush that he seems to come up with too is killer, man. I mean, he's got some great hand movements and some moves that he can get around guys or go right through them. But I like the fact that instead of trying to go through him, because he's bigger than most of those guys, he was beating them with his hands and his footwork, and that was something that was impressive to me.
No, I'm with you on that one. And watching him play tight end, I think jumped out to me the most too. When I saw him make some catches and run up the sideline, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this dude's got some dips on him. And that's what you want. Yeah. That's what you want. He can scoot. That's never a negative when it comes to an edge, especially the way they're going. So, last one, we got flip. Ivan Carreon, the big 6'6" wide receiver at Odessa, Texas. Emmett Jones did what he does best. And this was the funny part. Emmett recruited him and got him to commit in November of last year before he took of 2022. At the end of the season, he committed Tech. And then, you know, Emmett changed his jobs. We had the conversation. And it was funny because in one of my videos, actually the video I was talking about our guy, one of the Tech fans is like, he's committed 100% to Tech. He ain't going nowhere, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just laughing like, bro, I don't know if you know, but Emmett Jones did recruit him. This 4-star wideout, I think he wants to play for Emmett. He wants Emmett to send him to the league. And because of that, boom, my man flips. I'm excited because he's fast enough. I don't think he's 4.4 speed. He's probably closer to 4.5. But at his size, he's a target that's going to be hard to defend. You've got to hope you have a big enough corner to play against him. And it makes me think about when we played Florida State in the bowl game and how Johnny Wilson was out there just, you know, kind of getting abusive at the end of the game because they just started using his height. They said, screw it, throw it up and let the big dude get it. Mm-hmm. And I think now we've got a guy that's not a tight end that can do that. He can just outrun a lot of your linebackers while being just the biggest dude on the field. And so, Coop, you saw Ivan, man. How'd you feel about that commitment, man?
If you have been watching football at all over the past 10, 15 years, how many times did we have a 5'8", 5'9", 5'11" defensive back going out there against dudes who were 6'4", 6'5", and they were reaching back up over, grabbing and just rolling, just mugging our guys. And again, like you said with the Johnny Wilson piece, so I do not care about anything with his offer list or anything like that. He's out of Odessa, Texas, which is dang near Mexico. And so you just got to understand, we got a big dude and people are going to know his name here before too long. And the name parody or the name situation, Carreon, my wayward son. I love it, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, right. And I love some of the questions like David asking here. I'll tell Jaden Gibson, and of course, it's popped in from Jason. Gibson is about 6'5.5", if I'm correct. So he's probably closer to 6'6". But yeah, he's a giant. Nick Anderson is 6'4". JJ Hester is 6'4", which he looks like he's getting healthy again. And then Farouk is 6'3". So you've got a lot of giants. And I think Andrew Anthony is 6'2"-ish or 6'3". So you got a whole bunch of tall dudes on the edge.
Right.
I gotta confirm that with Andrew Anthony. I forgot how tall he is.
Let me check on him because it didn't seem like that was right. But anyway,
6'1".
Yeah.
He's 6'1". He's listed as 6'1". So he's probably 6'1", probably close to 6'2". So yeah, 6'1", Andrew Anthony, 6'3", Jalen Farouk, 6'4", Nick Anderson, 6'5" and a half, 6'6", Jaden Gibson, 6'4", 6'4", JJ Hester, and then 6'6", Ivan Carreon coming in next season. And so a bunch of really, really tall players. And so Matt, it's a good question, Whiskey, on this one. Will these tall receivers be better than what we saw with Dallas, Todd, and Jeffrey Mead? Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I don't even think. Of course, none of us really know what the outcome's going to be. I'm hoping that Emmett Jones can develop them into really standing out. You know what I'm saying? I think I got a little bit more trust in Emmett Jones and what he's been able to do because he's been a part of some Biletnikoff finalists with what he did at Tech. So we'll just kind of go from that. And jump balls. This is what I'm looking at is the jump balls. The jump ball ability that David just mentioned, as well as what Baby Ben said is the Mawson ability. Just catch it over people or just catching it. Just the larger target's going to help, especially going into the SEC because you're going to see some bigger corners, bigger safeties, and all of that. And just like Kim mentioned, he is definitely that dude. And so we've got a lot more talking when it comes to going to the SEC and what's going to happen. And Kim asked this question. I want to make sure I jump into this before we move into potentials. Are we going to get paid from ESPN? Yes, we're going to get paid a lot. And honestly, that's why you saw that movement at ESPN. Disney was cutting cost, and they have a lot of highly paid talent there. I went and did some digging on it to look it up, and that's why you saw all those names go. They were, a lot of people were highly compensated. Basically opens up an era for, new talent to come in, and they're prepping for all these TV deals because those TV deals are expensive. They're going to pay all those TV rights out, and then they got to bring in. They're going to probably try to bring in young talent to try to cut cost while also still hopefully providing a quality product. But I think we'll be fine, especially because ESPN does a good job when it comes to the SEC all the time. And look who decided to show up. The number 4 man, Kchris with a K from the Horns Down podcast. Kchris, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Not much. Just trying to make it through these last we got about a little bit over 50 days, a little bit over 60 days, right? Until football.
57 days, bro. I think it is.
roughly. And so we've got a lot of we've been talking about the 3 commits. I'll give you the table now to kind of get your thoughts out before we jump into who's coming down the line. But you had Xavier Robinson come up first, and you had Wyatt Gilmore follow right behind him, and then we got the flip of Ivan Carreon. What's your thoughts?
My first thoughts about the wide receiver flipping from Tech is I think he's going to be a flex tight end. I think he's a guy that you bring in, and I'm not sure if he sees the field maybe in the first or even maybe the second year, probably latter part of the second year. Reason why I say that is not because of talent, but because in that flex tight end position, I don't think they're going to ask him to do the same things that they would be asking like a Braden Willis or guys like that to be doing as far as getting down and dirty and trying to block. But I think that he's a guy that needs to put on some weight. I don't necessarily think that you can he needs to get in the weight room and be solid at that. I know that we could sit here and draw comparisons between him and Jaden Gibson, but I still believe that they're 2 different players. But as far as the other commits or whatnot, I think the running back out of Carl Albert, he could possibly be the best out of the bunch that you possibly could get, with Durham and Tatum as well. All around back, just a guy that is just really solid. And then, like I said, I think that getting him in there and turning kind of that baby weight that he has, that country strength, getting there with Schmitty and actually, like kind of fine tuning that's going to pay dividends as well. But also, I think for me, I'm really interested in a kid out of Minnesota. The DN, that's a solid pickup. You go right into Big Ten country and you get a kid that obviously you've done your own evals on. And I'm actually kind of excited about him because I think that's the first of many to come. And I think that in this D-line class that we could potentially have, it's going to be interesting to see who really kind of pops out at first, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's not some of the bigger names that you hear that are actually, popping out and getting a lot of rave reviews, especially going into, winter workouts and then, spring ball as well.
Okay. We like. Okay, let's move into the bigger conversation that I know everybody in the chat wants to talk about. I wanted to give us the first 30 minutes to show excitement about who we just won, but now we've got to talk about what everybody cares about, the trenches. We've got a lot of recruits in limbo right now, and the big question that's come down the line on here is been this: who commits next? Any rumors around Williams Nwaneri, as well as Matt asking who's going to commit next. So we're going to talk about who I think is going to commit next, as well as rumors around the line. But this is the one I want to point out. Seth asked this question: Wyatt Gilmore hinted at a huge D-line guy committing, and Bates retweeted it. Makes me feel like Nwaneri and Stone are on board. So we're going to talk about our thoughts on that, because here's a tweet that we saw from our guy recently, right? Wyatt Gilmore, can't wait for the world to see who is going to join me on the 24-karat power line. And of course, I tweeted out a picture of Power Line doing his dance from the Goofy movie, because that's the only power line I know about. But at the same time, if we've got a nice power line coming, oh boy, that's going to be huge. And so obviously, Wyatt knows something. And Nestus mentioned this too when he did his commitment, that there was a lot of talk about silence, that he felt like there's a lot of silence that you just don't know about yet, and they're prepping. And so we're gonna look at this power line. Now, some people were looking at this image and they think they can figure out some of the people on here. I don't know. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. Let's get to the nitty gritty in the conversation around this or whatnot. Jason, talk to your boy. Who you think's next on the defensive line to commit?
Oh man, don't get me lying, man. I know. Man, I'd love to see. Lloyd comes in and says could be McKinley, maybe. I honestly feel like I'm not sure that it's going to be Stoney, just because he seems to be coming in and going, saying a lot of stuff like, "Hey, I haven't committed nowhere yet. I'm still traveling around and looking around and stuff." And it seems like he's getting a little antsy. Although we do know that he loves to troll people on Twitter too. So that could be a smoke screen. I think that the way that I took that tweet was that it's not just going to be one. It's going to be two or three. And it's the three guys that I think that we've been talking about all along. I think it's Nigel Smith. JJ was talking about how, Aaron, oh gosh, what's his name from the Rams was keeps saying
Aaron Donald.
Yeah, Aaron Donald keeps saying Nigel is going to Oklahoma. He's going to Oklahoma.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, listen, and Nigel had went and worked with him there in Pittsburgh a few times, and so I think that they felt like they had an opportunity with him at first. They keep saying it seems to them like that's where Nigel's going to be. I've never really come off of the idea that Stoney's going to do it. And then from what we're hearing, it doesn't sound like Nwaneri had the greatest visit to Georgia. And I've heard from a couple of different places that as far as NIL money is concerned, they're not really close at Tennessee or Georgia to what OU is planning to pay him, which is kind of weird to me. But
yeah, I would have never thought that. Never expected to hear those words. But
me neither, at all. And I've heard it twice, from high level guys that seem to have their finger on the pulse of this stuff. So I still feel like it's those three guys. I think Dominic McKinley is a possibility, because of some of the stuff that I've heard from different places there too, down in South Texas and some of that kind of stuff. But I think they also do like UT a little bit. So we're going to have to kind of wait and see where that's at. But I think those three guys, it's the guys that I know this group has locked in on those three guys as the guys that we kind of feel like are the closest to going to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of right there with that, but I've always thought that Stoney was going to end up being a Sooner anyway.
Okay. Chris, what you feeling on that?
I kind of have to piggyback off of what Jason said. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm not going to fall for this picture. Obviously, that could be anybody, and but at the same time, those are the things. I mean, hearing about that Georgia trip and that. Now, I didn't hear that it didn't go well, but I heard that at least you don't have to sit there and try to fend off serious, commitment, a serious commitment from Winery early on to Georgia or whatnot. I feel confident about this D-line class. I really do. I think at the end of the day, Nigel Smith and Stone. I think that McKinley is kind of one of the outliers, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think you're going to go. I mean, the expectation from the get-go has always been that we're going to take a high number of D-line guys in this class. So I don't think anything is going to change. I think that's still going to happen. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about getting closer to the season, because in August, we're in July now, so August next month and in September, mid-September, I see a lot of early commitments or whatnot. I think July is going to be a month that pops off for us. And I mean, hell, 4th of July is on Tuesday, and then you got this week as well. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if this week is the week that we finally see our fireworks. No pun intended. That's
a fair point. Coop, what you looking at with this?
I'm going to answer this question in a very political way. Is if you're worried about commitment numbers, even after before this 3 that just came out, I went back and did the numbers, and we're ahead of where we were last year. And then the 3 hit, and now we've got tonight Samaj is committing. I don't really feel OU on that one, but that's an opportunity. My opinion is Devin Mitchell's coming to OU. My discomfort is when this, is he going to reclassify or not? So I think he's coming. But when we get down to that defensive tackle, I'm not going to try to stare at people's silhouettes and do this. I'm not really good at that game just in general. But I think that Stone knows what he's doing, and I think that everybody else knows what Stone's doing. I think that OU gave him full clarity to go out and just enjoy the process. Hey, we're here. We know what you are. And we're looking at him doing a lot of recruiting. And they were talking about during the barbecue that instead of guys going back to the hotels or going back to their rooms and, talking to folks, they were all hanging out. There's too much smoke around these defensive linemen getting together and saying, hey guys, that what we could do, what we could do. And so I'm going, like Jason was saying, it's the guys that we've been talking about the whole time. I think that I think he's coming. I think Nigel Smith's coming. I think Stone's coming. And then we start playing games with, a Jake Jackson or McKinley. And we're going to have some. I just kind of feel bad because somebody in here is going to be rooting for this 9 guys coming in, and they're going to end up number 9. And so, but we can't just have 2 really good defensive linemen in the SEC. You got it. Your second team has to be able to be better than what we've had here recently.
Yeah, and that's so interesting to me, even hearing that. Kim even posted this here. Georgia stated OU has an NIL deal that would be hard to match. And so let's talk about Winery real quick on that Georgia piece. I was on the Fizzle Friday with Parker Thune. And the one thing that jumped out to me about the Georgia visit was this. It was an unofficial. It's a couple of things. One thing, it was unofficial. It was unofficial. He kind of went. His brother had a birthday party in Atlanta, and he went up to Athens on Sunday. He wasn't there for very long, based upon the way the timeline looked. He was probably there about 2-3 hours. Sounds like that was a negotiation piece on their part. Like, hey, look, let us put a package in front of you. Let's talk about it, and you can make your decision from there. When he left, not a single Georgia person put in a prediction of him going to Georgia.
Nope.
That to me told me, okay, that wasn't, even as an unofficial, which is what terrified everybody, If they don't have anybody putting in with confidence that they think he's going to Georgia, that tells me I don't think he's going to go to Georgia. I think that we're going to end up winning him. Other thing to remember that is that PJ Adebawore had committed on July 10th. I thought it was August, but I forgot he's a July guy. July 10th is when he committed.
Right.
I can totally see Nwaneri doing the same thing. Between now and the party at the Palace, putting his commitment in and focusing only on high school football his senior year. I can totally see it. I know that X-Rob is going to be an early enrollee. I anticipate that Nwaneri would be the same. To answer the question that populated from you, Jason, Maj did just commit to Cincinnati at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So he is a Bearcat, and unfortunately,
Did I ask that question?
we didn't get him. You had mentioned it. You said he's committing today. We didn't know where he was going, and I just looked it up, and boom, it shows
I
that
think it
he's
was old
going
Coop
to.
over there that was mentioning that. Actually, I forgot.
I actually, it probably was Coop. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, one of the two. But he did just commit. He's going to Cincinnati. So unfortunately, we won't have the two quarterbacks in the class to go. I think it was more of a sure. We'd love to have them, but we don't get them. We don't get them. I don't think anybody's truly upset that we don't have him coming. It was more of it'd been great to have the two quarterbacks just to have depth. Depth and competition, because DG leaves. Bevel will be gone as well. You're running low on quarterbacks, and you never want to have the situation we had last year. But I digress. Based upon what Gilmore is saying with all of this, man, I don't think it's Stone. I don't see Stone committing this early. He can shock me, though, because I know that he's supposed to go back to Florida mid-July to start training, because he mentioned about how he doesn't think he's going to make it to the party at the Palace because of that. So that's always a possibility. But I could see Nwaneri being the next person in line to commit on the defensive line. I think that he'd be the one, personality-wise, you could tell because he didn't do very many interviews. He's going to make his decision, get it done, and then you don't hear from him until he does a big ceremony in December to sign, just like PJ did. And with the relationships, I saw PJ tweeted out to him to go ahead and come. I saw Grayson Helton do the same thing. Well, Grayson Helton tweeted it, PJ retweeted it and quote tweeted it and said, come on, or something like that. And being from KC, of course, they have the relationship. If there's anybody next on the defensive line, I'm going to say Nwaneri, mainly because the tea leaves really look like it's pointing towards him. When I saw those tweets, I was like, oh, this is calculated. It's got to be. And so if the 4th of July, we get explosions, there you go. That's it as far as defensive line. We won't see anything from Nigel Smith until September. So if anybody's curious about that, he will not commit until I think either the 2nd or the 3rd week of September. That's when they have the new facilities. So I wouldn't expect that to happen until then. But yeah, that's about it on that one. I think one had a statement here around Michael Patterson, July 31st. I think it's the 31st. Is it 31st? 30th or 31st? One of the two.
It's the 31st.
31st. I'm sensing that he'll be here as well at the end of the month. But if we go to the next one, the next date, official date that we have, is one that y'all all have been talking about in the comments that some people may not have recognized. I'm gonna find it real quick because I forgot to star it. Boom, 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 boom. Give me just a second. I'm gonna do it. Actually, I want to point this out too. This is a good one here. Eric posted this over there on Hall of Fame Media. I just got the lowdown on Daniel Collier. Top 2 are Oklahoma and Texas, with Tennessee and LSU following. Texas is offering him a Dodge Demon and some cash. Oklahoma visit coming soon. Really?
Dodge Demon and some cash. That a boy. Love it, Eric.
Is that Danny Okoye or Spitzer Rattler?
But hey, I would love to add him too, because we need as many of them going into the SEC as possible, just because I think it goes good for what we're trying to do. All right, here's the person y'all been mentioning. Dalton asked this question. Interested about Mitchell. Mitchell is a Sooner from Seth. When is he going to reclassify? I anticipate Devon Mitchell, the Miami hype started. There was a lot of Miami hype that hit the field the last week after he did a visit. I don't know how real it is because I don't recall seeing an insider throw something in on it yet. And insiders have thrown some stuff on Divine Mitchell to Oklahoma already. I don't see it. And Parker actually mentioned it on that space on Twitter about him that there might be a small amount of smoke, but he doesn't think it's real. And I think he has the best sources. He has a good relationship with Michael Hawkins and their family. And I know that his dad is on campus often. So since that's the case, I think that Divine Mitchell is next, which is on July 8th. That's the one to keep your eyes out for. Chris, who you think's next?
You know what? I was thinking about Divine Mitchell, honestly. Not for this question, but I was just thinking about his commitment coming up because, you know, that's the one thing I keep thinking about with Miami. Who the hell is going to be a quarterback? Because, all those Florida schools not all of Florida schools, but 2 out of the 3 main Florida schools keep shuffling quarterbacks if you see what's going on, right?
They do.
But as far as who's next, man, I would honestly say probably Neri, in my opinion. You would say, common sense would tell you that he should be Stone, but at the same time, I think that he's liking the attention. He's liking just kind of dragging it on or whatnot. We talked about this these past few weeks, Jay. I think a lot of them are wanting to have big family events, big family gatherings, and make this, a CBS, HQ Sports, whatever. They want to turn into a spectacles, and rightfully so. This is a big moment for them, so they get to do that. A guy like Neri, at the end of the day, I thought that, Nigel Smith, you don't hear too much about his recruitment because I think that a lot of people are just really and truly confident about, him coming to OU. So you would think that a guy like him or Neri would be the ones who would go ahead and pull that trigger. But right now, I'd probably say Neri, to be honest with you.
That's a good one. Jason, who you think's next?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Williams Nwaneri as well. And the fact that having Green on campus already, and as you said, I think the connection to PJ Adebawore, I don't know that a lot of people really have made that connection, even though they're from the same place. Yeah. So I think that could be a lot to do with it as well. My concern was obviously Georgia, and then when you start hearing that kind of stuff out of Georgia, he was there quickly, and he's out of there. That it's odd to me that they weren't going after the number 1 defensive tackle harder than that. It just really odd to me. But maybe they saw the writing on the wall there that it just wasn't going to happen. And I think that since you've seen this staff really put an emphasis on Kansas City players, that these kids that are coming from that area around Kansas City, you've seen them go and really shake that up. I think Nwaneri, did he make it to Mizzou yet, or is he still got to make that final?
Yes, he did Mizzou. He did Mizzou before he did Georgia. He did Mizzou he moved it from the weekend to like a Thursday, Friday. Yeah. And then he flew to Atlanta Saturday, did the brother's birthday party out there. Right. And then Sunday, on basically before he returned, did the Georgia visit on Sunday. And so, yeah, he did Mizzou because he posted a picture.
Kind of felt like I think he felt obligated to that visit, no matter what,
Which is very true. I do feel like he felt an obligation to do that because, they're close. They probably recruited him heavy at the beginning. But at the same time, he's also one of those players that jumped out very, very fast. PJ, it's funny because, and I know a few people have kind of made these quote unquote little jokes about some of the players he brought in, like Wyatt Gilmore, 4-star. Some of them have them 3, depending on the recruiting sites you see. Sure. Everybody's like, we're 3-star U. We're not getting all these elite players, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, there's 2 things. One, Williams Nwaneri, all your big name players, McKinley, Stone, a lot of them, everybody's after him. So they actually have a lot to decide. The guys underneath them are starting to commit, but the big name guys, everybody's trying, they're throwing their name in the hat on them, or the schools that have decided to quit on them and going ahead and fill with other spots. That's 1. 2, because of that, remember, PJ was a 3-star when we initially gave him an offer. Yeah. He was relatively unknown, and then the dude finishes as a 5-star plus, meaning every single recruiting site named him a 5-star. That's how good he flew. Jackson Arnold was pretty low.
He was number 3 in the composite, right? By the time it was all over with, in the whole class, right? Number 3 in the composite.
Exactly. Like, so these players, it's going to take time. Like, we're still at the beginning of 2024, and when all these recruiting, some players, they get on them early, especially when they start doing like visits and camps. Some players don't do a lot of them. Don't worry, you're going to start seeing those. Some of the people that we've recruited are going to move to the chart. I think Xavier Robinson is going to move up into the top 300 before the season's up.
Oh, yeah.
I can see especially if he does another 2,500 yards on the ground and carry his team to the title. But yes, Maneri has been posting a lot more Missouri stuff, especially after he went. And Lloyd, you're 100% correct. That Soul Mission was huge for Maneri, is basically what all the articles have said. So if that's the case, I'm keeping my mind on that part of the game. And so, Coop, who you think is going to be the next one to commit?
Davin Mitchell I think he has July 8th. My birthday is July 7th, so I'll take it as like he just forgot. And so I'm fine with that. But I mean, I'm going to say too, that's the one I'm going with. If you look at the commit predictor on 3, dude's the number 3 player in the country, and on 3, it shows 80% OU and then 4% Missouri. That's it. I think again, writing's on the wall. He's that Lee Summit, that Kansas City, that area up there. They're a lot closer than a lot of people think. I think that the Missouri posting is a lot of these guys are going to throw smoke screens, right? Because I mean, he's not going to Missouri. Yeah, that ain't happening. And I'm pretty sure that he had a candid conversation with Mizzou staff and said, "Hey, listen, I want to give you guys your shot." I think that most of these guys that Brenton, Todd Bates, and Chavis are recruiting, we are not recruiting problems. We are recruiting character. We are done with the finesse. And Jason was saying it earlier. We're bringing violence back in. We are
Yes.
A lot of guys who want to hit a lot of guys. You saw it with Lewis Carter. I'm still Lewis Carter. If you have not bought in on the Lewis Carter bandwagon this past year, he is the front runner for I'm bringing violence to your front door. And a lot of these guys are. It's character. It is grit. And I'm just excited. And again, Hank, you're dead right. He just posted. There's a lot of negativity around Georgia right now, and they're running into that issue to where, it's the optics look bad. LSU getting hit with the suspension, the optics look bad. And if family, the soul mission, all those things are important to your family. There's not a comparison there. I mean, it is two different things. So I'll go with LWN here coming in, and then I'll parlay it with little Davin Mitchell also, and I think that this stuff's done in the next 7 days.
And yep, he's right. And Lloyd, you asked this question: is Jamar Cain? Yeah, and you actually posted right afterwards. I did. I've heard that. I think Jason. I think you mentioned this to me. That I think it was you. I can't remember if it was. I do believe it was you that mentioned it. That Jamar Cain. Somebody mentioned that Jamar Cain did not believe that McKinley was going to end up at LSU.
I've heard so many stories from so many places, Jay, that I don't even. I know that it sounds to me like his family is not good with LSU staff. That's what I'm hearing. And that's why there's so much frustration with Texas, with Oklahoma, is because, and that's the weird thing when you start talking Louisiana kids, it's a big deal for them to go to LSU, just like it's a big deal for Oklahoma kids that are able to go to OU. I don't think that I don't know whether he ends up here or he ends up in Austin. I don't see him ending up in Baton Rouge. I just don't see it. Yeah. And that's wild to me, but that's where it sounds like I don't think it's going to happen. But you were talking about the soul mission, Coop, and I think that has so much more to do with this than everybody really thinks. And Hank, you hit it right on the head there too, talking about when parents start seeing this stuff, that there's allegations. Now, I will say, just like what Josh Pate was saying the other night, allegations that got dropped, a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to sit here and bash on Georgia just to do it.
Right.
But the optics do not look good. They do not look good over there. And when you start hearing this over and over again, they definitely have a drag racing problem. And that turned into, and that to me, the fact that that kid got away with that, and you had 2 people from that team die, one of them being a GA and one being a player, that's insane to me. That he gets all he got out of that was a misdemeanor, deal. A person loses their life, and at least one person in those vehicles was drunk, and this is it. National championships be damned. That's crazy to me. That is crazy to me. And so
yeah, it's wild.
I think that, again, I do think that they have an optics problem. I'm not going to sit there and badmouth Kirby to the point that, because I don't know enough to say that isn't nothing's going on. But I don't know that there's not something. There is something going on, because shit, you can, everybody that you talk to or you hear about it, that they've had at least 4 or 5 different times where the cops have been involved in these drag racing incidents, and then the last one, of course, being tragic. But I just think that it's something that they have to get figured out, and I would agree. I think Coop, you're right. You start looking at it, parents are going to be like, I like the soul mission a little more. We don't get money so much right now as we need to make sure that our kid stays healthy.
Yeah,
it's not just the Justin Broyles of the world that are on the soul mission. You got NFL players, and so they can, you that's what you're offering these kids is you're looking at Stone, Nigel Smith, McKinley, Nweri, and you're saying like, that you're here for 3 years, and then we're going to prepare you for life. But you also have guys like Curtis Lofton, who led the NFL in tackles one year. These guys are going to help you along the way. And then you got GMAC, who's not even on the team or soul mission or anything else, and he's always around the program. And McCoy's going to be helping people out. And this guy is, consistently getting invited back as one of like the Tampa Bay greats. So again, when you recruit your own problems, and when you have to go after, top end talent, at some point you got to say like, we got to walk away from this person or that person. But and not to make light of it, but just the drag racing. And when I think of Georgia, I think of Atlanta, and I don't think I've driven the speed limit in Atlanta. So I don't know where they're doing this racing at.
I asked the same question too, man. To be honest, I figure out where it's happening. And Kenny make a good point here too. You also got that defensive lineman that struck one of the coaches at Alabama. Y'all heard about that?
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, that was so D lineman hit the portal. Buddy of mine hit me up on it and was like, "Hey man, you think we would go after him?" And then I think I hit up PG, and I think I hit up Kchris as well. I couldn't remember, but I was like, "Man, he's a big boy, 310 pounds. Man, it'd be something." And then I heard the rumor. I was like, "Wait, he did what? He struck a cup? Oh no, that's not. No, we're not. No,
sounds like Texas A&M to me.
We're not taking him. That's not even a take.
Trust me, as close as Bob and Brent are, I promise you, that's one of the main conversations that Brent and Bob had right from the get-go. Is like, you can bring somebody here. We did it with the Beckham, who's the tall wide receiver out of Missouri. He had a lot of issues in Missouri.
Yeah,
we know that. Yeah, DGB. Yeah,
DGB.
One of the craziest follows ever. But and then Bob left the sport early because of just the entire Mixon situation, and he's telling him like, you don't want to deal with this because it is 24/7, 12 months, and it'll never go away.
Yep, exactly. Chris, thoughts?
No, I mean the Georgia stuff is wild to hear. One of the things I would definitely say is that they're still going to get the benefit of the doubt, because winning cures a lot of stuff. And, especially when you are able to put people in the league, they're going to give you a little bit more of a leash, right? But he is going to have to get the reins back on this. And I think you saw that with some of these players, quietly leaving, exiting, Bear Alexander being the, kind of the face of it as well. It's one of those things that I mean, look, I'm thankful that we have made it to July and OU has not had any news, because for past couple of years, No, hey, it's been a lot of news.
Knock wood.
Yeah, knock wood, because I mean, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, look, I am, please, whoever was watching this, if you're a Texas fan or if you are an SEC homer, right? Do not take what I say out of context, please. I don't think that we beat LSU in that national championship game, but I could tell you this. Having Ramondre Stevenson and Perk there or whatnot, that would have helped, going into that next year. What would it have been like if we would have had, damn near, if we would have had Kennedy Brooks, we would have been all right. But having Ramondre, you saw the difference at running back that he made whenever he came back, then, we still, nobody knows exactly what Trajan Bridges would have actually been. But I know that when he was on the field, he seemed to be a bit electric. He was always high energy and doing the right thing. So, it's a lot of what ifs, right? But like I'm saying, though, it's just one of those things where you're just thankful that, you're not hearing OU players in a similar situation because, it wasn't too long ago that we were dealing with a lot of this stuff too. And it was really boneheaded stuff that was going on. Don't get me wrong. Drag racing is one thing, but, beating up people beating up people in a state where marijuana is legal in some instances still doesn't make that much sense to me.
No, not at all. But people are kind of they wild, guys. They wild. All right, man, this is fun. This was good stuff. We actually went a whole hour already. If y'all want to stick around, I got one more fun topic to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump right into it then. So this was interesting to me. 24/7 pulled up top 10 quarterbacks QBR wise from Pro Football Focus's numbers, right? Actually, no, this is just QBR. And QBR wise, you had Jalen Daniels as the number one player coming back with a pretty good, number here. At like 90 something. You've got Bo Nix, you got Caleb, you got Jordan, Travis, Cameron Rising, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., Frank Harris, JJ McCarthy, as well as KJ Jefferson. Out of this 10, who y'all think is going to be the best? Coop, I'm going to start with you. Who's going to have the best season next year?
I'm going to answer this question, but I want to congratulate Bo Nix for being on a list of great quarterbacks because I don't know how he continues to do this. I'm blown away. Like golly. I don't know. I mean, listen, guys, Caleb Williams, you're going to see tanking in the NFL for Caleb Williams. That's going to happen. Drake May, I like what he did last year. He slowed it a little bit towards the end of the year last year. I want to see what he's I want to see if he can follow it up because there was the Hal kid here previous. He went into his last year with a ton of hype also, and it didn't pan out. Like again, he ended up as like 4th, 5th round draft pick, and Sam Howell. And so I want to see, I want to see somebody else in KJ, JJ. None of these kids scare me. Cam Rising's will. This guy deserved to play under Brent Venables because his will to win and his gumption. I'm very, very, very impressed by Cam. But it is Caleb Williams, and then there's a little bit of a gap. We'll see what Jordan Travis can do. Again, when you're throwing up to a 6'6" monster who could just moss everybody, your QBR goes up a little bit.
That's true. Jason, what you looking at with this? Because we're going to talk Big 12 quarterbacks next before we wrap it up.
Okay. First thing, well played on the Bo Nix thing. Love that. That was hilarious. But dude, I look at this list and the one guy that jumps out at me is Cam Rising. I love Cam Rising, man. This dude is an alpha male. He loves it. I keep thinking about that Pac-12 championship game whenever he got mocked. I mean, the helmet flies off, everything. He got hit so hard. And the first thing he does is pop up, look at the camera on the sideline, and smile. It looked like he was looking at Lincoln. But man, that was real. That was real. And to go out there and do the things he's done, there's things that are more important to me than QBR, things like that. Those things are nice little things to look at or whatever. But when you got a guy that's going to go out there and he's going to give you every bit of what he has to win that football game, I love that guy. Michael Penix Jr. was another one of those guys that we, watched. I know Chris and I were talking about him a lot. There was a thought about if DG didn't hang around that they may be going to go after him pretty hard. I like him a lot as well. But I still, to me, looking at this list, and Drake May, we're going to find out, without Phil Longo, is he going to be the same? I think build-wise, he looks great. I know we're going to talk about the Big 12, so I won't get into Jalen Daniels just yet. I do think he's unbelievable. But I still, looking at this list, the guy that jumps out at me, aside from Caleb, obviously, being the Heisman Trophy winner and a guy that we know very well, is Cam Rising. And Cam's beaten him twice. Okay. So,
That's true. Chris, looking at these quarterbacks, top 10s, who's the one jumps out to you for this coming season?
The one that jumps out to me the most, I would say honestly, I would start at 6 and 7. I think that if you told me this was the Big 12 rankings, I'd say you got it right. I think that Jalen Daniels possibly is the best quarterback in the Big 12, but this is QBR wise, and I mean I'll just leave it at that. I think that some of these kids they have put up some really gaudy numbers. I'll just say this, Bo Picks, right? Not necessarily worried about him. I think Jordan Travis is a good is a good quarterback, but I'm eager to see what he does this year. A lot of Heisman talk around him this year being a Heisman hopeful. I think Drake May is what the NFL, he's the prototypical NFL quarterback. He's what they want, not only with just the intangibles, but the look as well. Take that however you want it. I think Michael Penix Jr. is a really good quarterback as well. But like I said, I'm always scared about him because he's had 2 ACL tears. And, it's there's a lot to ask whenever you got, high caliber athletes just flying around, one good hit and that's it, right? So that's the only thing that I'm really scared about. But like I said, I would start at 6 and 7 just because I really like what Washington did. Washington had a lot of, we'll be physical when we have to be, but we're going to open this up. We're going to air it out a whole bunch. We're going to take shots whenever we can. I think that obviously don't let this list fool you. I think Caleb Williams will be right in the mix again for the Heisman. I think that his numbers are going to be insane this year with Lincoln, especially being in that third year, that final year with Lincoln. He should just be able to elevate them. Don't get me wrong, Dorian Singer or whatever the case may be, Mario Williams, I don't think that they have the Jordan Addison or the CD Lambs or guys like that superstar wideout that Lincoln has had. But I just think that with everybody being in year 2 of the system and then Caleb being that guy, you're going to see guys step up like they did in the game against Tulane until down the stretch, right? But I'll let you go on, but I will say this right here. I think the most interesting name on there, honestly, is Frank Harris. Frank Harris is a damn good quarterback, man.
Yes, he is, man.
Yeah, UTSA,
They, don't get me wrong, they ended up getting beat, pretty handily by Texas last year, but at the same time, man, they kept their game interesting for a while.
For a long time,
they were just a couple of bad plays away from, honestly, keeping some drives alive and being able to do some things. They couldn't really capitalize whenever they got to the red zone. But, man, Frank Harris is a pretty damn good quarterback. He's the guy that obviously went under the radar, went to UTSA. Don't get me wrong. Trailer out there is a really good recruiter, really good coach. But, I mean, Frank Harris is a guy that, hell, if he's at North Dakota State right now, probably got a couple of national championships, and you're talking about him being a high draft pick this year, right? So
that's true.
And
that's a good point.
With that game that you're talking about, it looked like they kind of ran out of gas a little bit. That's where depth kind of came into play a little bit when it came to that Texas game. But one other thing I wanted to say on here about looking at Frank Harris and then obviously Jordan Travis and stuff. A lot of these guys, you start looking at them, and Bo Picks, that was a funny one too. They're Kchris, man, I like that. But it's funny to me how nobody's really talked anything about, Coach Prime's son. This kid comes in.
Shedeur Sanders, yeah.
Shedeur Sanders. I know that he hasn't done it at the Division I level just yet, but when you look at what he has, look at him throwing balls. That he throws dimes. He throws dimes, and he's got that athletic ability to be able to move around and do things. And we know that in the college game, that mobile quarterback that can spin it is important. And I think that you're going to see some things out of him this year that he'll definitely be on this list next year. I don't know about the QBR part of it, but I really think this guy is going to shock some people because nobody's really talking about him yet. And he's got, with Sean Lewis being the offensive coordinator there, got one of the best. That's one of the best offensive minds in the country, period. And, Shedeur has access to him. I like this guy.
Oh, no, I'm with you, too. Shedeur is one I'm a lot higher on than most. Hell, Shedeur was a 4-star quarterback coming in, as a recruit. He was top 200 in the country. So he's got talent. We just got to see, if he can put it all together with that coaching staff, in which I do think he can there. But when I looked at this list, the name that jumped out to me the most was honestly Jalon Daniels being up there. He can stay healthy, man. He's going to be a threat. And that was one of the teams I was nervous about us going up to play this coming season, just because I've seen Jalon Daniels go out there and carry a team by himself. But surprisingly, there's about 5 quarterbacks on here that, actually are pretty darn good. Like, I like KJ Jefferson. I think Chris, I don't know if he was actually on the SEC Connect with us when we talked about KJ, but if KJ stays healthy, Arkansas' schedule is built for them to win 10 games this year. This could save Sam Pittman right here if they go out there. They've got a very favorable schedule based upon traveling. J.J. McCarthy, they're going to, of course, Michigan's going to do their thing. Between Michael Penix and Drake May was already a lot of people's favorites. And I really liked him as a redshirt freshman. He's going to be really good this coming season. Cam Rising's out there with a chip on his shoulder, which we all appreciate. Florida State is doing things right. But Jalon Daniels, and of course, Caleb's going to be Caleb. He's going to be in the Heisman run as usual unless he gets hurt. But Jalon Daniels is the one that jumped out to me. I'm just like, oh, that's actually impressive that his QBR was that high. But when you go into the Big 12 quarterbacks, these are your highest graded returning quarterbacks in the Big 12. You have Dylan Gabriel at 87. What's that? John Rise Plumlee over at UCF at 80. And Chance Nolan at 79. He played at Oregon State last year. He's now going to be at TCU. Jalon Daniels is 4th at 78 grade. And then 5th is Blake Shapen coming in for Baylor. And
where's Chance Nolan going? Did he go to Houston?
No, he's at TCU. He's a Horned Frog. He left Oregon State, and he's a Horned Frog. Now, TCU's got So this is what's fascinating about this here, right? Is that this is Pro Football Focus's, this is their metric, and it basically goes into type of passes you make, there's like so many metrics they have when it comes to putting together their grades for each game. And Dylan Gabriel's one of the highest graded people on their list. And usually your high graded guys are the ones that they say potentially going pro. And I think he was actually top 10 in the country for PFF. I'm going to pull it up and remind myself. But he had actually a really good year. Looking at the Big 12, who did y'all not see on here?
We don't see a certain Texas quarterback, Quinn Ewers. Where is he at?
Sure don't.
They'll tell you he was young and he was a freshman.
Willie Farfee.
Huh?
What is he doing? Say that again.
I just said they'll tell you that he was a freshman last year and that he was injured and this and that and this. The same excuses they didn't make for what was his name, Casey Thompson, when he was there until he was out of there. A little bit of the same. Now, hey, if we can, let's break down these quarterbacks right here. So, Dylan Gabriel, obviously we talked enough. I think some of us, Jay, are really drinking a lot of the Kool-Aid. Some of us are kind of like, hey, look, let me get a little cup, you know what I'm saying, to go. I'll be back for more if it's good. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, it's just you want accuracy. You want him not to be inconsistent in just certain game situations. Look, like I'll just leave it there because I know I'm not going to have a course with me today. But I'll say this right here. John Rice Plumlee, to me, I think you've seen him before. You faced him before. The West Virginia quarterback last year. He's a better passer than that kid at West Virginia. But he's a guy that, you know, a few years ago, he was supposed to take over at Ole Miss. He had that one game against Alabama where he just basically torched them and shredded them. It's been pretty much up and down, obviously, on the transfer. Gus Malzahn's offense is when it's clicking, it clicks. It's a very gadgety offense. It is very twist and turn, keep you on the edge, keep you kind of off balance. But at the same time, he's a guy that I feel like, you know, if that game comes down to, if this not a blowout, I think that game is going to come down to basically what you saw against West Virginia last year, or even a Baylor where they're just going to try to run, or like a Texas Tech where they're trying to do a lot of QB runs, telegraphing it, and it's kind of up to you to stop it, right? To read the gap, go to the right gaps, all the rest of that. Chance Nolan, you know, one of those quarterbacks that, you know, the little engine that could almost, right? Like, you know, Oregon State was in a lot of games last year. They were really, I mean, they had a damn good year last year by any means, but I don't necessarily know if I'm worried about him because I think Morris down there at TCU, I think he's the guy. I think he would have been the guy last year if he would have never got injured, but you know, that is what it is. Jalen Daniels, obviously we all think he's great. I don't necessarily know if he's injury prone. Hopefully he doesn't get injured this year and he can play a full season and get that look back against Texas, right? And then Blake Shapen is one of the most – he's more frustrating than Dylan Gabriel to me because there's times where he comes out there and there are a few drives he'll put together where you're just like, I mean, there he goes. Oh, so that's what they saw. And then there's games where you're just like, man, it's a bit different because he is trying to play so safe. And, you know, coming into the season, it was, well, he's going to air it out now. He's going to be able to be more accurate down the field. And you didn't see that last year. And it wasn't like they had a lack of talent around him. It's just, I don't know. I think it was a lot to do with up here than it was just with his intangibles.
No, I mean, you got a good point there. And looking as we dive into this list here, man, I've been in the camp with Dylan Gabriel, and Seth has said it good. This is basically where I've been with it. Is that, do we need DG to be? Is DG as good as Baker, Murray, Rattler? No, I don't think he's at their level. But I don't think we need him to be that good. We just need him to continue to do his crisp passes and stay accurate and get better at his accuracy. I mean, he's not perfect. I've criticized him enough, but at the same time, I've also given him a little leeway because I've seen with some of the situations when you watch the film, our biggest complaints were, man, there's like 5 touchdowns that was just dropped. And it's like right in the hands. And you're like, oh, God. So
Marvin had 3 of them.
I exactly, and he got drafted. So, but my point behind it is that I know that DG can just make it happen. And the good thing is that score-wise, like I said, this includes scrambling, this includes passes. It's a full metric of the entire running the entire offense for that. And Dylan Gabriel, when I looked at it, he's top 15 in the country returning out of all the players in the country when it comes to this metric when I went through and looked at the list. So he's going to be good enough for us. And we'll be preparing for Jackson Arnold to play. He should see some game this year as well as even better next year. So Jackson Arnold's going to be stupid going into the SEC. So I'm stoked. But it is funny, though, that we don't have – because when I looked at Quinn Ewers' numbers, Quinn was graded I don't even see him in this list.
He's 172 for 172 out of 296, 2,100 yards. 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and no returning Bijan Robinson.
Yep, he's ranked at 151st on the list. He was a 72. He was a score of a 72.4 on it, a 70 in pass, and 59 on the run. And so, yeah, grade-wise, he just wasn't that guy. Got to throw a shot at Texas, guys. We love our Texas people that pull up, but we're going to pop up at one of y'all for that. But, all right, good stuff. Anybody, what you got, Jason, on these quarterbacks? And then Coop will wrap it up with you.
About that, yeah. And I've said this a lot on my show and stuff, but we don't do a lot of that. I don't like this DG catching strays all the time. I think once he got hurt and you realized what you had behind him, then his accuracy went down a little bit because they kept him in the pocket so much. And no, he's not Baker, but with the same kind of build. And if you listen to what Baker said about him this past week when he was there, he was saying that he really liked him. I think that in order for DG to be effective, you've got to move him out of the pocket, or move the pocket, I should say. Do something to let him be running around on his feet making plays, because if you get him to where he's just standing there in the pocket and all the trees are coming in around him, yeah, it's not going to be good for him. He's not the biggest guy in the world. So I think that it's easy to take shots at the guy, but again, 124 out of 131 on defense, it didn't matter. The fact that they were in close games at all is crazy to me. That, you know what I mean? They were number 50, top 15 in the country. They were in all these close games. And when you've got that kind of defense, they shouldn't have been in those games, you know? So
right.
I think it's easy to take shots at him because we know he's not Caleb Williams. And we watched what Caleb Williams did, you know, out at SC, and we had seen what he had done at Oklahoma right before that. So it's a tough situation for him, but I think that you better be hoping that he stays upright this year, because you don't want to insert somebody earlier than you have to. And, you know, I think that it's good to know that you've got Jackson Arnold waiting in the wings.
Yeah, it's good to know that you got him and you won't have all the excuses that you had around the Texas game. Look, like I said, man, I think Gabriel could. Don't get me wrong. There were three things that happened last year for Gabriel: injuries, drops, and sometimes just poor game management, to be honest with you. And that's not necessarily on him. That's on the coaches, you know.
Yes, it is.
We come out there and it's just 3 and out. And then obviously, yeah, when you're already on your heels as a defense and you're not playing your best ball, and, you know, one game here, 2 game, you put together a 2-game stretch, and then you go out there and start making the same mistakes where, you know, you're not sustaining drives, you're not getting 2 or 3 first downs. You're going out there and 3 and out, and you're putting the defense right back on the field. That's why you get into a game like you did with Kansas this past year, where it's kind of a high scoring game, simply because defense is out there, you know, and you know, because that game right there kind of started off like, okay, well, I guess this is going to be it. Got some stops, and then, you know, we started kind of doing some things to ourselves as far as turnovers and just, you know, things like that. I think where it's crucial for me is just that, you know, a game where your defense is showing what you said, Jason, like a K-State, I think that's the prime example. A game like that where
you had to be perfect.
You know, yeah. You can't beat yourself. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that defense obviously could not stop the motion that they kept running with their tight end and with their fullback, and for those little 5-yard out routes. I mean, they were just running across your face and just getting 5-yard out routes, turn those into 15, 20-yard plays. You know, the tight end sitting in the middle, we couldn't cover the middle on the zone. Hell, we was playing zone at some points, and guys sitting right there and still couldn't do anything, right?
He got a 3rd and 27 freaking run.
But at the same, that's crazy too. But at the same time, you know, you got to be. I get that you know, Drake Stoops isn't the tallest wide receiver or whatnot, but on those out routes where he's clearly open and he's beating this guy, on those routes with guys like Marvin Mims, you know, there was a pass in the corner. Guy, he's running pretty much open, and he has to step. DB is over him, but if you throw that right there on the money, it's probably a touchdown. It's plays like that right there where you got to go and win. It's not necessarily because, like I said, we could talk about numbers. We're going to talk about numbers. Go talk about Landry Jones being arguably the greatest quarterback to ever come through OU. But at the same time, when you're talking about the game being on the line and not being able to capitalize and make those plays that, for me, I expect Dillon Gabriel to do. I think Dillon Gabriel is arguably top 3 quarterback in the Big 12 right now, today. And I don't think he's number 3. And I'm just going to be honest with you.
Okay.
I just, but like I said, to go out there and show me that you're the best, to show me that you do deserve to play in this P5 conference or whatever, those games right there, when the game is on the line and you got to go make a play, especially last year, outside of Eric Gray, who was the other best player on the team. I mean, offensively, honestly, it was Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
You know, Marvin Mims was Marvin Mims, let's be honest with you, but it was really those two who kind of had it going, you know?
Yeah.
But like I said, he's got to hit guys on those plays that matter, those crucial plays.
Sometimes I would say this is that one of the things that I had a problem with DG on is holding the damn ball too long. There were times that, you know, he give up a sack. You cannot get a coverage sack, man. You got to get that ball out or run. Go ahead and take off. You know, if there was anything that, you know, and I mean, he wasn't perfect. We all know he wasn't perfect. But when I think of that K-State game, I think about, you know, look, he goes down right after that 3rd and 27. They get that first down. They score 2 plays later, and he immediately drives Oklahoma down the field and gets right back in the game again. So that would have been a game-winning touchdown otherwise, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's one of those deals where you gotta, you know, oh man, and you look at the play. I can think of that last play that when Adrian gets in the end zone. I mean, Stutzman was in the wrong hole again. You know, it's the wrong. You're in the wrong gap again, bro. You know, and it was like that all damn year. Same thing with Baylor. You know, it's just one of those things that you saw too much of that. And I agree that, you know, it's like I said. I know I take up for him a lot, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they just didn't have a lot of depth there. Once he did get hurt, I know that they could not afford to get him hurt anymore. So you stop seeing him rolling out to the left side or rolling out either way and getting better throwing lanes for himself. You know what I mean? Until
the offense got a lot more hesitant at that point. It made sense. It was a logical move. You don't want to lose the quarterback, especially in the situation that we were in. And so we talk ad nauseum about defending DG, but I think that's a good conversation because a lot of people do need to hear it. We had levels of problems. And the best part about going into this season is think about it this way. And we're going to go on to the last topic that I want to revert back to what Coop mentioned earlier and wrap this bad boy up with that because it'll be a great 5 to 10 minute conversation. Remember this. All the players that came in when we started last season, everybody was brand new, learning all new systems on both sides of the ball. This coming season, only the new people need to learn this system because we're running the exact same system for everybody that's already here. We ain't got to worry about that. That's going to make things fun. So let's wrap it up put a bow on it. Coop, you mentioned this earlier in the show, and I thought this was a very good topic, but I wanted to hold it to give it its own opportunity to really air out and talk about. And then Seth posted this, which sparked it at the perfect time. Do we flip any defensive guys if our defense is legit this year? But we're going to expand that to the question you asked, Coop. If we were 9-3 and not 6-7, does our recruiting look any different this year? And we win 10 games this season. What does recruiting look like going into the SEC? Let me open with this. I don't think our recruiting changes if we went 9-3, besides going 6-7 this year. And I say that for one reason, because we're going after a lot of high-profile defensive players. And because we're going after such high-profile defensive players, they haven't committed anywhere else anyway. So I don't think that they're questioning where they want to go. I think we're just, like we talked about before, our staff is stopping them from committing immediately because they're all still doing visits. If you notice a lot of these other players that have committed to these schools, the one thing you may notice about them is they're still doing visits. Like they're still going places. You see the wide receiver for Ohio State and Miami and Florida State all the time. So, is he going to flip? Is Georgia going to get him? You see that so much. It's like, okay, does that bother you more to see a guy that you got committed go a bunch of places and everybody asks the question, will they flip? Or would you prefer to wait and see if they commit, and then when they commit, you never hear about them again? Ask that to the audience to post in the chat and tell me what your thoughts on that. Coop, let's go to yours. You mentioned this first. What were you thinking with that question?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that if we go 9-4 last year, we are looking at we don't have to explain last year at all. Now, that being said, I don't think it's that as big of a deal as a lot of people do, because it goes beyond one. I mean, look at Texas. Texas has been dog crap for how long? And they've been back for 37 years, and they're still pulling guys every single year. So NIL is a bigger piece, but track record is a bigger piece. Here's what I think for this year is we just throw those quarterbacks up there and there's nothing there, right? Our first year in the SEC, we're going to be facing a lot of first-time quarterbacks there also. So our defense has got a little non-conference game action for the next 2 years to really butter up and gain some confidence. And I can promise you this is I think that everybody in the system for the second year, you've got your leadership like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe. You got all these guys who are in a second year. You're influxing in Dasan McCullough, PJ. There's some Gentry Williams. I'm hearing looks like a freaking stud right now too. So our defense is going to set us up for something pretty spectacular. And again, Alabama coming to Norman. I don't know what Alabama is going to look like a quarterback this year, and I don't think they do either. So there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of new. So I think I think that if I had to guess, and again, full disclosure, I sat in here and said I see us going, winning 10 wins last year. I feel like we don't have a lot that scares me from the quarterback and the offensive perspective in the Big 12 this year. And so our defense is going to take multiple steps up. We're going to see the backfield is going to look stronger than it has in quite a long time if things slide in. Our defensive line is starting to get some recognition too. So we are going to have a great year. And I think that we are going to start turning some heads here later in the year. Also, if people start taking a look over and going, so Todd Bates didn't forget how to coach defense. Brent Venables didn't forget how to do. Okay, cool. So, and now I think a lot of it has to do with Danny Stutzman really, really recognizing that quarter of an inch to the left meant something. And I know that was a big conversation at some point.
Yes, it was.
Kchris.
To your question, I believe your question was, can we flip some defense?
So if we have a good year defensively, is there a chance we start flipping defensive players? That was Seth's question.
Yeah,
adding to that, kind of what Coop mentioned earlier on, if we had a better record, do we think recruiting accelerates this year? In which I say no, because I think that just high-profile players, they don't. But I think that if we have a good double-digit season this year, it may accelerate some others in 25. But first off, do you think we flip people if our defense?
Yeah, I mean,
really
you
good this
could.
year?
I got you. You could. Peyton Pierce is probably still on the table if you can actually go out there and show them what you need to do. I know me and my uncle, we talked about that a while ago. I think that he would be probably the one name, but at the same time, I think that it bodes well going into the 25 class, but also the in-between, late in that 20 and the 24 class as well. I mean, I think you start seeing them pick up guys that other people slept on, like the Colton Vasics, Taylor Wins, not Colton Vasics, but the Taylor Wins. You get what I'm saying? Because if you're able to get those type of kids or whatever on campus, I mean, you're doing something. But definitely think it bodes well. I think that especially these kids who are going to commit, late September. I think those kids or whatever will feel a lot more confident knowing that, OU is 5-0, but looks like a damn good 5-0 going into, the Red River game. So for me, I think it's all about going out there and winning 10 plus games, honestly, just showing that, hey, there's faith in his team, faith in the coaching staff, and just, faith in the administration as well. I mean, OU is always going to be on to bigger and better things, but you want to have things trending in the right direction going to the SEC. So it's a must for sure. It's a must for everybody, not only the fans, not only the coaches, but also, not even the recruits, but also the players that you got inside as well, just to know that, hey, look, we're one step away from, really turning this into something. But I definitely think, Peyton Pierce will be a guy that I think that you could possibly go back and talk to. Don't think necessarily with like Sammy Brown, the West Coast, guys like that. But I do think like a Peyton Pierce, you could possibly go back and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. This is how deep we are, but this is where we see you at. How you fit into that, if OU goes out there and does what they need to do, I mean, I think you lose Stutzman, and then you kind of start circling a wagon with guys as far as, not the Lewis Carter, Sammy, however you say his last name,
Omasigo,
Phil, Kip Lewis, guys like that, Shane Whittier, you start kind of seeing, okay, who's staying, who's shuffling, all the rest of that stuff, because you're gonna have some dogs that come in, and it could potentially come in. So, yeah, like I said, I think you see that. I think it bodes well for us, but not necessarily thinking that we could see huge, like a big number, hell, even 3 flips. But I think that you could see potentially 1 or 2 at least.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and Jimmy, I want Braden Pratt as well if we can't flip Pierce or even go after Sammy Brown. I think Brown's kind of lost. I think it's one of the. He was always a Clemson guy anyway. He was a Clemson guy with BV there as well as Dabo, and he spent a lot of time there as a kid. So that was a tough one. That was a long shot. We was hoping for the opportunity up, but it didn't happen. But yeah, Jason, with the record and everything, man, we'll wrap us up.
I think we've said this a few times. I know you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, Jay, but I almost feel like 6 and 7 and that 3-game losing streak in there may have helped Oklahoma get some of the guys in this class, in the 23 class, right?
Right.
Because they knew, if you start listening to kind of what Makari was saying, and you heard the same thing from Samuel Omosiho, was that's when they kind of, it seemed to really galvanize that group, as far as being a together group, because they knew that they were going to have to come in and be a big part of this season right away. So I think it almost helped a little bit doing that. Now, as far as this year coming up, I don't think that that's going to be the case again, because you have those guys there now, and you've gotten some of these guys in the portal. I think that you're going to want to see. I think that these kids probably want to see them take that next step, right, and get better. Be in the top 50, top 70 at least, at the worst. Be in the top 70
right.
this year. I think if you just see them go in there, win that 9 games at the floor, which I feel like more and more, I still, like what Coop was just saying, 10 wins is easily attainable with this schedule, and I think that anything short of 9 is probably going to be looked at as a disappointment, right? I just think that's kind of how I feel at this point. But I think that last year, had they won 10 games or 9 games, in his first season, maybe you don't get all those kids, because there's, and Chris, I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, does Danny Stutzman come back, or is he in the draft? You know what I mean? That's a good point. Maybe he isn't. But I think that I think there's a lot of difference between what you saw this past season. I think that helped get some of these big time players. Whereas next year, some of those guys are probably going to want to see that you can take that next step or whatever. And I think defensively, they're going to look 1,000% different. They already have, I just think I think it's going to be a lot better.
I can see that. And I honestly, winning cures a lot. We've seen that before. We've got a lot of time to go with recruiting. And so we're going to wrap it up. We've already gone way past what I normally do, but we appreciate y'all pulling up, watching us here on YouTube. We appreciate y'all listening to us on wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to. You know where to find everybody. We're here all the time. We're like a big family. And so we'll wrap it up. Jason, let the people know where they can find you.
Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. It's at CFB-pod on YouTube. You can find us at hofmedia.us online, and that'll pretty much take you to the rest of them as well. So, yeah, or at just on Twitter at BirdieManDub.
Sweet. Chris, let the people know.
Hey, Horns Down Podcast on Twitter. You can find us at the Horns Down Pod. Kchris with a K on Twitter as well. Find us on all, YouTube, obviously all the podcast platforms or whatnot. Definitely check us out.
Thank you. And Coop is always here with me. And so thank y'all for pulling up here to the Sooner or Later Sports Show. Please hit the like button and subscribe, as well as the bell notification if you want to join the YouTube family. Memberships are available starting at a field goal, $2.99 if you want to get extra content, as well as priority in the chat and all of that. Please feel free to join the family. I'm going to probably do like a Saturday morning live stream during the season just for members to kind of hang out and talk about it. So doing that extra content is going to be fun, but it's a great way to support the channel. You don't ever have to join the membership, but it's always a good way if you want to do something extra for us. And if you're listening, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Just give us 5 anyway, and we'll chop it up with y'all in a few days. Take it easy.